How does one teenager really become the face of a global movement? Today, we're diving into the story of Greta Thunberg, a name that in just a few years became completely synonymous with the fight for our planet's future. I mean, it's really hard to overstate the scale of what happened back then. In 2018 and 2019, the largest climate mobilization in history just erupted across the globe. We're talking millions of people, especially young people, pouring onto the streets. And here's the truly wild part. This massive global wave of activism, it didn't start in some corporate boardroom or at a big fancy summit. Nope, it started right here with one single teenager and a simple handmade sign. The contrast is just incredible. So that's the big question we're tackling in this explainer, right? How did one person manage to ignite a worldwide movement and become, for so many, the voice of a generation? To figure that out, we've got to go back to the very beginning. See, to really get the movement, you first have to understand the person who started it all. This is Greta's story, well before she became a household name. Okay, so Greta Thunberg was born in Stockholm, Sweden, into a family that was, really deep in the arts. Her mother's a well-known opera singer, and both her father and her grandfather were prominent actors. So she definitely grew up in a world that was familiar with the public stage, but her path was going to be very, very different. Now, the real turning point in her life came when she was just 11 years old. After her class learned about climate change, she became so deeply affected by it that she fell into a severe depression. She actually stopped talking for a while and had trouble eating. For her, this wasn't some abstract problem for the future. It was real and it was personal. And it was during this really tough time that she was diagnosed with Asperger's syndrome, which is now considered part of the autism spectrum, along with OCD and selective mutism. But what's really fascinating is how she chose to see these conditions. She didn't view them as weaknesses at all. Instead, she completely reframed them as her superpower. And this is such a key point. She credits her Asperger's with giving her this intense, single-minded focus and a black and white perspective that let her see the climate crisis with a kind of brutal honesty that, frankly, a lot of adults seem to be missing. And it was that superpower, that laser focus, that directly lit the fuse for a global movement. Let's look at how one person's protest just exploded into a worldwide strike. It all kicked off with two words on a sign, Skolstrejk för klimatet. That's Swedish for School Strike for Climate. In August of 2018, when she was just 15, Greta decided she would do exactly that. She started skipping school every single Friday to sit outside the Swedish parliament, demanding that her country's policies actually line up with the Paris Agreement. And at the very beginning, it was literally just her. One person. Sitting all by herself with her sign. A solitary act of defiance that wouldn't stay solitary for very long. Because then, the growth, it was just explosive. By March of the next year, what began with one girl had inspired over 1.6 million students in more than 125 countries to join her. The Fridays for Future movement was officially born. And if you think that's incredible, it didn't even stop there. The peak hit in September 2019, 4 million people, not just students, but adults too, took part in the largest climate strike in history. From one person to 4 million in just over a year. So now, with this huge global movement at her back, Greta wasn't just a protester sitting outside Parliament anymore. She was a major voice on the world stage. And she used that voice to speak truth directly, and I mean directly, to the most powerful people on the planet. Her speeches became these defining viral moments. At the UN Climate Conference, she told world leaders, "You are not mature enough to tell it like it is." In Davos, she looked at the world's economic elite and said, "I want you to panic." And of course, there was that fiery, passionate speech at the UN in 2019, where she just kept asking them, "How dare you?" And she wasn't just talking the talk. She was literally walking the walk, or in this case, sailing the sail. To get to that UN summit in New York, she completely refused to fly because of the carbon emissions. Instead, she took a 2-week journey across the Atlantic on a zero-emissions racing yacht. What a powerful symbol of living by your convictions. Now, as you can probably guess, this direct, no-compromise style didn't exactly go unnoticed. It won her millions of fans, but boy, it also stirred up some pretty strong reactions, both good and bad, from some of the world's most powerful leaders. Let's look at a couple of big examples. When President Donald Trump sarcastically tweeted that she should chill, she hit back with this amazing, disarming humor. She just changed her Twitter bio to "a teenager working on her anger management problem, currently chilling." Perfect. And when Vladimir Putin called her a kind but manipulated girl, she just ignored the personal dig and kept her focus squarely on the science. Her responses were often just as powerful as her speeches. So, what's the takeaway from all this? When you step back and look at the big picture, you can really see the lasting legacy she's built as the voice of her generation. You can really break her legacy down into 3 key things. First, she completely fired up a new generation of activists, inspiring millions of young people to get politically involved. Second, moral clarity. She just cut through all the political noise and jargon to frame the climate debate with this incredible sense of urgency. And third, personal integrity. By practicing what she preaches, she gave her message a kind of authenticity that you just can't fake. And really, if you wanted to boil her entire message down to one powerful idea, this quote is probably it. You are never too small to make a difference. That's the core belief that took her from a lone protester to a global icon. It's a message of empowerment that clearly resonated with millions. She's already accomplished so much, but her story is obviously far from over. She's still out there protesting, challenging leaders, and pushing for real systemic change. And that leaves us with one final question to think about. What will be the next chapter for the person who has already redefined what it even means to be a global leader?